Awesome. Our guest today, Weston Skaggs. Welcome to our Worship Team Training University Brown Bag Special. Glad you guys are here. Thanks for coming in. I'm Brandon Dempsey, and it's a wonderful Wednesday to have music, ministry, and stories shared with you. And this is presented by Worship Team Training University. You can catch a lot of what we do here, and we thank you guys for coming in. You saw us on Instagram. You might have heard us from our podcast, subscribing to Worship Team Training Podcast on iTunes and iHeartRadio, or also you're just a member at our university, or you're hanging out with us here on Facebook each week at Tuesday, 11 a.m. Central, every week as we do music. We talk about things for worship leaders and training, and this is what we do. So great to have you today. My name is Brandon Dempsey, and we are here with awesome Weston Skaggs from Cleveland, Ohio. WestonSkaggsMusic.com, also out from Old Bear Music. And we say a big shout out to all of our friends, Chris and Anthony and Ryan, all of our good friends over at Old Bear Records. And it's great to have Weston today. Weston, as you know, he's been on here before, actually on our university program. And this is what we do here at Worship Team Training University. We do not only 800 and some odd articles and videos that are packed with worship leading, keyboard, drums, guitar stuff for you worship teams. It's a membership site. But we also have live interviews just like this every Thursday, and we do unlimited webinars. So Weston was on one of our recent Thursday trainings, and we were talking about leading worship. I asked Weston to come back and share some free things with you about songwriting, because songwriting is what we're talking about this week. And so we are excited to have Weston Skaggs today. So Weston, how are you, buddy?
Doing great. Glad to be back, Brandon.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for coming back, man. It's great to have you.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah. So let's get right to it. So we're talking about songwriting. And guys, we want to let you know that you're free to comment in the box window below. Please, hit us up by a comment if you got a question for Weston. Of our very end of our broadcast today, we are going to show you actually how you can get a free copy of Weston's music and also something else free as well. So you want to definitely be included to watch the rest of this broadcast for that. So let's get right to it. So Weston, tell us, as we talk about songwriting itself, before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, how you got into doing music and all that stuff.
Oh, totally. So I am part of a church plant here south of Cleveland, Ohio, in a little town called Sterling. And about over 5 years ago now, going on 6, there was my brother-in-law was called to the ministry and started a church plant here. And I played guitar, but had never been involved in worship leading before, beyond being in like choirs and stuff in my independent Baptist upbringing. So did a lot of singing, but not like on a worship team or anything. And so I played guitar and hopped up there, and I had a couple of guys who were really seasoned worship leaders who helped get the church started, and then kind of handed things off to me after a little while. And so that was about 6 years ago now, when I was first kind of cutting my teeth there. And it was pretty early on that I was like, man, sometimes you're trying to find the right song for a service or for a message, and you just can't find something that says exactly what you want to say, or what God is teaching your heart, So I was naive enough to sit down one day and be like, hey, maybe I could write a song. And it went well enough that people encouraged it and liked it. And so I continued that and really worked on the craft of songwriting a lot. And was blessed to God put one foot in front of the other to record now 3 albums in the past 5 years. Things have just been blessed by him, and I'm signed now to Old Bear Records out of New York, and it's a great group of guys and gals to be associated with. So
yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Yeah, and we love Chris and Anthony and all the guys over there at Old Bear Records. So thanks for allowing us to have Weston on today. And so, Weston, can you tell us what right now, you're going to be sharing a couple songs with us. Can you take us through one song right now and kind of give us the background story of it, and then would you mind sharing it, playing it for us?
Definitely. The first song that I'll share is the first song that we wrote and recorded for my LP in 2016, and it's called Out of the Wreckage. The story of this song was a lot of my songs come from personal experiences, things that God is teaching me, things that God is teaching my family. And my wife and I were married going on 7 years ago now. And when our daughter was born, our first child, Paisley, my wife had a very traumatic birth experience and actually was in surgery for 4 hours, life-saving surgery, and lost almost all of her blood volume. It was very traumatic. And in order to save her life, they had to perform a hysterectomy so that we'd be unable to have more kids. And at 25 and 24, or 24 and 23, that's, a tough blow for her to wake up in the ICU the next morning and receive that news, Yeah. And so we went into this time of real tension, little girl in our home, and then, having some of the darkest nights of our lives of like questioning God of why this pain happened. And, just kind of, trying to sort through this time in our lives. And the name of the album is Joy and Sorrow Meet, and that's kind of that tension that we were living in, of being in the happiest days of our lives and yet walking through some of the deepest pain that we had experienced. And one day I was reading in a devotional by Oswald Chambers that a lot of folks are familiar with. It's called My Utmost for His Highest, and it's just an awesome devotional. It takes a scripture and expounds on that as a thought for the day. And he was talking about how Paul talks about in Romans how nothing can separate us from the love of God. He makes the observation that God never promises that his people will be without pain. He promises to be with us in the pain. And that's the beauty of God with us, At the end of that section, and actually the header of the devotional for that day is called Out of the Wreckage. I was like, man, it really ministered to my heart, and it was just some powerful words. And I thought, if only, I wish I could put that into a song. So when I was down in Nashville, doing some writing for the album with my friend Ian Zumbach and Joel Russo, we got in a room and I talked about what God had been doing in our lives, and we brought this song to life along with the Lord, I think is always involved in songwriting for his church as well. So would you like me to play the song now and then talk about it a little after?
Love it.
Then from a structure standpoint and stuff?
Yeah, totally. Let's do it.
Okay. My dreams for this life lie in shambles around, and my heart is overrun. The thieves lie in wait and the wolves they surround, but I know, Lord, I know that I'm not alone in this fight. And out of the wreckage I'll rise. The battle may rage, but my hope is in Christ. And out of the wreckage I'll rise. Well, a new day is dawning, the war isn't over, but I won't turn tail and run. Though the thieves lie in wait and the babble surrounds, but I know, Lord, I know that I'm not alone in this fight. And out of the wreckage I'll rise. The battle may rage, but my hope is in Christ. And out of the wreckage I'll rise. Ooh. love of God will bear me through. I'm not alone in this fight. You're not alone in your fight. And out of the wreckage will rise. The battle may rage, but our hope is in Christ. And out of the wreckage will rise.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much, Weston. That was fantastic, dude.
Thank you.
Walk us through the song, lyrical concepts, wherever you want to go from here.
Okay, totally. So this song is, so when we sat down to write it, what I had initially was just, I liked the way that these chords sounded. And this is in the key of B, and it's played open here. And I just play, let's see, an E, and then to these open kind of seventh chords of an F sharp, sustained, and then a B sustained. And there was a lot of tension in those chords, and it kind of seemed to fit the feeling of that phrase that I had in my head, out of the wreckage. So I'm going, out of the wreckage I'll rise. And nothing more than that. Just kept playing that over and over.
Yeah.
Out of the wreckage I'll rise. And so I brought that to the songwriting room, and Ian and Joel, we worked on kind of making an arc for the song, thinking about where we're starting out, in the first verse, my dreams for this life lie in shambles around, and my heart is overrun. The lyrical terminology there is, of a battle. We were talking about the term wreckage. It helps me a lot if I have like what Philip LaRue, he calls like a North Star idea for the song of like where I want to get to, and then we plot out where we are, and then the song progresses us to get there. So the verses kind of talk about the tension and the pain that we were living in, and but the chorus is the turnaround. I think Springsteen says that all of his songs are the verses are the blues, and the chorus is the gospel.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
And that's true in a lot of gospel music as well. There's there's that influence and story arc. There's a couple of things about this. I think why it came out so easily for us to write was because the sound of the chords fit the vibe of the song. We decided as we were writing it, this is probably not going to be a huge worship anthem. It's probably going to be more of a song that's more of an offertory. It's that singer-songwriter thing.
Yeah.
My vocal range, I sing real high into the falsetto, so it's not something I'm going to bring, and just hand off to anybody to sing. And yet to communicate the truth of that song, some of those choices are important, So kind of we made the decisions to write to serve my strengths versus serve something that needed to be sung congregationally. Now, if we would have taken a right-hand turn and said, we really want to write this song to be sung out by the congregation, then we would have limited the vocal range and maybe made the verbiage, maybe less picturesque and more straightforward for people to sing. So we wrote this as knowing this was going to be a singer-songwriter type of song. So it was important for us to determine the purpose of the song early on to know in what direction we were writing.
Cool.
Any thoughts or questions on that so far?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is really great. What's the, you have a second song too. Can you walk us through that, the backstory And what's it called?
Yeah, definitely. The one other thing I was going to say about Out of the Wreckage was the bridge is an important part of that song. And when you're writing a song, you have the verses and you have the choruses. Then you need to make the choice of, is there anything else I need to say? And is there anywhere musically that I haven't gone yet? And so when we go to the bridge of Out of the Wreckage, of this one thing I am sure, the love of God will bear me through. And that kind of is the full, kind of takeaway or the wrap up of that song. But it also goes to C sharp minor, which is a chord, a musical texture that hadn't been used yet in the songwriting of that. So those two things I think are super useful if you're thinking about adding a bridge to your song when you're writing. Is there anywhere musically I haven't gone yet? And do I need a bridge? Is there something else I need to say to tie this up?
Yeah, good points.
Then the next song I'll share, it's called Lay It Down. It's off of the same album. And this song was initially brought in a songwriting session with Chris and Anthony Hoisington, and they're of Brothers McClurg and Old Bear Records as well. And Anthony had this song, and when he was dealing with anxieties and things in his own life, and he brought the basic parts of the song to us, and we wrote it as a trio. But what I really grabbed onto with this song, and as we took it by the horns to write it together, was what I think about when I sing it is we were entering the adoption process then for my son Boaz. Paisley was born. We knew we wouldn't be able to have more biological kids, and so we entered the adoption process. And we got a call one day before even our paperwork and application and everything was all done, and they said, "Hey, there's a boy who's in the NICU. He needs a family. Wow. We know you're not expecting anything for like 6 months or a year, but would you be willing to bring him home as early as a couple days from now?"
Wow.
And they said, "Think about it, pray about it, but just let us know by 9 o'clock tonight."
Pressure's on, man.
Right. And so I really owned this song then when I was like, man, there were so many reasons to say no. When God opens a door for you to walk through to something beautiful, there's always going to be excuses, anxieties, and doubts. As I'm sure when you're looking at a new vision for worship team training, or when you were starting off initially, you're like, man,
yeah,
I don't know. There's a lot of reasons to not do this thing,
right?
And because there's a lot of fears and doubts that can come in, and yet lots of times we just need to take those anxieties, and lay them down before the Lord. So it's a really simple song, but I'll play it for you now, and then kind of talk about the breakdown.
Cool, do it.
So that I can become a saint that remembers in you I belong. I will always be your child, nothing more, nothing less. For my faith is in you only, and this I profess. I'm gonna lay it down, every fear to the ground. I don't need to worry now. I'm gonna lay it down. I don't need to stress, 'cause your way is best. Everybody gather round. It's time to lay it down. So Lord, I surrender and I don't need a thing. 'Cause even the flowers are clothed like a king. Lord, I surrender, I don't need a thing. 'Cause even the flowers are clothed like a king. So I'm gonna lay it down, every fear to the ground. I don't need to worry now, I'm gonna lay it down. I don't need to stress, 'cause your way is best. Everybody gather around, it's time to lay it down. Lay it down. Oh, oh, oh. Lay it down. I don't need to stress, I'm gonna lay it down.
Love it. Wow. Love that. That's my new favorite.
Thanks, man.
Walk us through that process.
So with this one, I had to kind of lay down some anxieties about songwriting, because I think a lot of us, a lot of unseasoned songwriters that when I work with somebody or read someone who's not like who's just getting kind of started, lots of times we want to make things really complicated. We want to choose the coolest words, we want to choose the coolest chords, and write this huge complicated song. But sometimes a lot of the best songs are very simple and straightforward. So for this song, it's just in the key of G with these very straightforward G, C, E minor, D chords, and there's no bridge to the song. It's just like an instrumental. If you listen on the record, there's a really great guitar solo and actually an organ solo that's just kicks butt. But we looked at whether or not to write a bridge for the song, and man, we kind of said everything that needed to be said. It's a very simple thought that the congregation needs to take to heart, and then we sing it in the key of G and in a range, put it in a range for the congregation to sing, because that's the goal too. For this song, it really seems like when I play it live, this is one of the ones that people really gravitate to, as even if they've only heard it a time or that one time.
Right.
I add a chorus or two at the end and just kind of lead people into worshiping and grabbing hold of that thought, and people are really apt and ready to grab a hold of that. So I had to learn to be okay with being simple, because lots of times we complicate things and muddy the waters by trying to say the entire gospel in one song. Right. Use every chord that we know in one song, use every cool analogy in one song, instead of just, being simple. And in fact, the second verse we wrote the first half of the second verse, Lord, I surrender, I don't need a thing, even the flowers are clothed like a king. And we were really trying to come up with more content for that second verse. And we were like, man, I just feel like we need to repeat that, and because that's enough of a thought.
It was good enough, yeah.
Yeah. So those choices were made to serve the people and to lean more into something that's congregational and easy to grab a hold of. So it's very different than Out of the Wreckage, but that's what the purpose is. It's a different purpose.
Love that. So what worked for you in terms of, that's I just love how you guys came at that, North Star for that song. And so how does, and encouraging other songwriters, up-and-coming songwriters, maybe veteran songwriters, what are some things that you do to maintain inspiration, or how do you stir creativity?
Mm-hmm. For everybody, it's different, but for me, I will find that I have inspiration often by reading. So reading good spiritual books and things like that. reading the Word. Lots of times you'll go, oh, if you have this truth that really jumps out to you, it's real easy to grab a hold of. And so lyrically, that can be really beneficial, is being in the Word and being in good theology, but also I love listening to brand new music, and then that's maybe out of my comfort zone or something a little off the wall. And lots of times I have difficulty making it through a new album if I just go, oh, what's, so-and-so released a new album this week, and I'll put it on as I'm walking around the house or as I'm driving the car, and almost invariably I have to shut it off if there's something really cool, because it makes my mind start thinking creatively when I hear something fresh and new. And then I'll be like, oh, that's cool how he said this, one thing in this verse, and what if I said something like that, and my mind just gets to where it starts racing, and I'll have to go and I'll have to shut it off, because I get inspiration from other songwriters and other artists through their music. I find that I work best not when I sit down in a room with a guitar, but when I'm driving or mowing or doing another activity. And they say that so your right brain controls your more task-oriented stuff and motor skills, and your left brain, is this accurate? Controls like creativity and stuff like that. I might have them switched, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But sometimes they say you need to do a right brain activity that is like, if you're taking a shower, if you're driving, if you're mowing, something that is very repetitive to you, that it frees up your left brain for creativity. And so I record voice memos as I'm driving all the time. And then once I have something good, then I sit down at a guitar with it. A lot of my best stuff doesn't come to me by sitting down in a room and just playing guitar for an hour. I don't write well that way. Some people do.
It just comes through experience for you?
Yeah. Yeah, so that was trial and error with me. I need to have a good thought, a good North Star going into a song, and then I can sit down with guitar and be like, go for it. So,
yeah.
Now, how do you write? Like, what's your, do you get ideas from when you're sitting in an instrument more, or do you come to a room with a thought?
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't, number one, think I was going to be interviewed here today. So
yeah, see, turning it around.
Yeah, you are. For me, it works both ways. Usually, I have two phases. I mean, one, I'm spending time quiet and just reflecting, or maybe when I first wake up and there's nothing going on in the brain and I'm already at rest and at peace, and it's time with. Usually, it's out of my times with God is when I'm praying, I'm reading the Word, and I'm not thinking about it. That's the best time when they come. And then also when I'm really busy, because I'm a creative and I like to do 5-7 different things at once, and out of nowhere a melody will hit me. But to sit there and try to chunk it out with a guitar and piano, I mean, I can do that, but it doesn't come out as great, because when you go back to, you find yourself having to rewrite the crud that you thought was good at first, and you're like, nah, this is not good, you're having to rewrite it anyway. That, but also like collaboration. I mean, collaboration's huge for me. Yeah. So it'd be like you and I sitting in a room and talking about, experiences through life, like you shared about your wife, and then I share about what happened with my wife, my family. And then it could be like a melody that maybe I was working on months ago or something. I'll sing it or play it to you. And, I think good collaboration is also good relationship. Would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So, for you, what comes first, the lyric or the melody? Generally
the lyric. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And the reason why it's just that North Star idea.
Yeah.
But honestly, they come parallel a lot of times, where I'm driving and I'm like, it's almost parallel. I couldn't tease it apart sometimes.
Yeah. And let's see, last one. When it comes to good words, choosing good words, why do they matter?
Especially when it's for corporate worship, this is what people are going to be singing, and they're going to be drawing their theology lots of times from these songs that they sing. Because when we sing, when we sing a melody, it ingrains. Like, song is so useful for memory. That's why we teach our kids their ABCs, as a song, because it instantly ties it deeply into their brain to memorize that, in association with that melody. And so when we do that with the truths of God's Word, it's important, because if we're careless with it, then they're going to be building a theology, out of the words that they're singing that,
That's good.
could be inaccurate or not the best, or so we take that with a lot of responsibility, don't we, when we write something for the congregation to sing.
Oh, that's good. Golly, building a theology for our generation. I think that's huge, because I know that our kids, when they run through the house, especially our little 4-year-old, I mean, you cannot stop the guy from singing, no matter how hard you try. And he's always just singing about God. He's just singing Jesus and making melodies with his heart. And you're right. I mean, when we can explore what God's Word is saying and put that in the song, and our kids are singing it, or the kids at the church are singing it, then, I mean, we're building them a foundation that will last.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's hard for a lot of people. We're all wired differently. It's hard for a lot of people to remember points from a sermon, but they might remember a song their whole life. So there's a lot of gravity to what we do.
Yeah, awesome. And you brought a lot of gravity today with your songs. Thank you so much for sharing the sincerity and the truthfulness of your words and your melody.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon, for having me on again.
Yeah, awesome. We're going to have you back. So, guys, here's the thing. I'm right now posting this link to you for our university, because when you become a Worship Team Training University member, you get more Thursday trainings and other videos just like this. Plus, there's unlimited webinars. We start out giving you 800 worship leading videos and articles. Plus, you're getting downloads, music leadership. There's also ebooks. There's also individual private podcasts that we do. So you're getting a lot more, and we invite you to check it out. And if you want a free trial, I posted it right here on Facebook Live. All you need to do is DM us or email help@wttu.co and just put VIP. And if you do that, we'll give you a free 7-day VIP pass into our program. You can try it out for yourself. And also, I'm going to give you the link real quick to get you the free song from Weston, if you just hang right there for a second. But we want to thank Weston for coming in, and this is all possible by what we do here at the university. And so we invite you to share this with your friends. We have actually quite a few guys in our program right now that's actually watching this. And this video that you're watching will not stay. We're only going to keep it up for a few days, and then we're going to switch it over to wttu.co, our website, where it will belong in our category, in our catalog. So you want to go ahead and get the stuff down now and soak up all the other good training. Weston, can you tell us about the free song that you're allowing us? And thank you so much that you're giving away to us.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So if you're familiar with noisetrade.com, there are... it's the ability for artists to share their work with people for free or for donation or whatever. And it can simply by adding folks to our email lists. So through NoiseTrade, I have my first Nashville EP from 2014. The whole thing's on there. And then my Joy and Sorrow Meet LP, there's a sampler. It's a 13-song album. There's like 5 tracks on there. And then my Christmas album that came out last year, all for download there. So if you follow that link to Weston Skaggs on NoiseTrade, you can get all that stuff for free. So
awesome. Thanks so much for doing that, man. We appreciate you sharing your music with us, and we know it's going to enrich you guys. So thank you again for coming out with us and hanging out here on the Wednesday Brown Bag Special, which we do about once a month. And Weston, thank you, man, for being here with us today and taking us through the journey of your testimony, the gospel, and music.
No worries. Thanks, Brandon.
Awesome. Thank you, bro. You're going to see a lot more of Weston, and we have a lot more coming up tomorrow at 11 a.m. if you join WTTU.co. John Thurlow, another singer-songwriter, is going to be with us tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central. So members, you want to set your calendars and notifications so that way when we pop up, you'll see us right away. Guys, thanks so much for being with us today. Please take advantage of the 7-day free pass that we're giving you right there, the VIP. That's all you got to put in the email, or when you DM us, put VIP, and you'll get 7-day free to try out Worship Team Training University. Download Weston Skaggs music, and the link is right there. And we'll see you guys back here again at Worship Team Training University. Thanks so much for coming out today. Love you. Bye.